Welcome to my channel where we cover the lore of Final Fantasy XIV. We cover the stories both big and small, the epic and the cute, the silly and the tragic. I hope you all enjoy the ride, and welcome to the Chronicler of Lore. When you get back to Tartaru and Kral lets you know that Matoya, the real one, not Ishtola, has stabilized the Scion's ether for now. It won't last, so you need to get them back to their bodies as soon as possible. While you talk, Maxima, a Galdian ally of yours, shows up with some urgent news. He's been working with Raban to hopefully end the conflict with the Empire, but from what he's heard, the Empire is in total chaos. They pulled a lot of members back to their homeland from Gimlet, so the Alliance is pulled back too. Now the only people who are watching the border are the Alamican resistance. But at the border he ran into someone who told him that the situation in Garlemald is going to get worse, so Raban has called a meeting to discuss what to do, and he wants the Scions there. Kral decides to go with you, so the two of you head out to Alamigo to see what new disaster you have to deal with now. When you arrive, you're surprised to see Gaius there. While you were on the first, he and Estinian were working together to deal with Black Rose, and they ended up in the Imperial Palace where they saw Xenos kill Varys. And since they were the only witnesses, and no one would believe them if they said they didn't do it since they weren't supposed to be there anyway, they had to run away. They went different ways out of the city, but when they met back up, Estinian told Gaius about a strange machine that he'd fought. What he described seemed familiar, so Gaius looked into it and found that the Empire was building a new Ultima weapon. The 7th Legion has done a very good job rebuilding the thing after you destroyed it since they've been put under new leadership. Gaius doesn't know who the new leader is or how they managed to do what they've done with the weapon, but he does know that a few prototypes have been made and one is on its way to Eorzea as we speak. Gaius tried to stop it, but all he succeeded in doing was slowing it down a bit, so he figured he would do better by warning you all. Raban already started bolstering the forces at Gimlet to get ready for the threat, and he wants you to lead the charge if you can. Even though you're busy with the Scions, this is important, so you join Gaius in the battle with the weapons, which I've covered in the Sorrow of Worldlet series on this channel, so check it out because that story was very good, especially for people who want to know more about Gaius and get a bit of Final Fantasy VII nostalgia. Despite the danger of the weapons, you are definitely the only person who can help the Scions, so you have to head back to the first to tell them all about what's happened with the weapons and Xenos. There's a bit of good news when you make it back. The Exarch has made some progress on his end, but first everyone wants to know what's happening on the source. The talk of the new Ultima weapon makes Alphinaud grateful for Gaius' help, but Ishtola is more worried about what other issues will come out of a fractured Garlemald. But there's nothing to be done until you get the Scions back to the source, and the Exarch believes that mission is nearly accomplished because Urianger and Beck Luke have made a vessel that can safely take their minds and souls on the journey. It's a crystal that has the properties of white auracite without that nasty business of destroying either the mind or the soul when you put someone in it. This new spirit vessel can hold them both safely, but there's still the small issue of making it have the power to actually draw them both in. For that, the spirit vessel has to be given the same gift that the Exarch has, which only comes from Allegan blood. Without that, there's no way to transfer the Scions' minds into the crystals, which means they have to study a little bit more about the ancient Allegans, and there are plenty of books in the tower that might have the information they need. Whatever it takes, the Exarch promises to see the Scions home. Lena comes into the room and she wants to talk to you about something, and since Alphinaud doesn't have the skills to help the Exarch with what he's working on, he decides to come with you to help Lena with whatever she wants. Plus he just wants to step outside for a bit. Apparently a Sin Eater's been seen in Lakeland, and Lena wants you to help with it. It's not all that big of a deal, but she wants her men to fight beside the Warrior of Darkness to keep them from getting complacent in these peaceful times. The Warrior of Light is always eager to stab something, especially when she has an audience, so you head out with a few soldiers who you have met on various occasions around the Crystarium. You're all prepped and ready for the fight, but when you arrive, the Sin Eater is already dead. Apparently some random man came out and soloed the beast with one swing of his axe. He claimed to be a Warrior of Light before he just wandered off again. It's a strange title to willingly claim considering how the people on the first feel about the Warriors of Light, but that's what the guy said. Since there's nothing to do without a Sin Eater, Lena figures that you may as well head back to the Crystarium, but before you go she wants to talk to you about the Exarch. Since the trip to the Tempest, he's changed. He seems happy for the first time in forever. She's glad to see that, but she thinks she should stay away so she doesn't make him think back on the bad days of the past. Some people are just really bad at reading people. Lena is practically the Exarch's daughter, and she's been by his side for years. He probably doesn't see anything but good memories when he looks at her, and you tell her that, which makes her feel a little bit better. So she decides to get back to a role of parenting the Exarch, starting by telling him to take a break from all the working he's been doing. Back in the Crystarium, Alphinaud actually has something he wants to talk about. He's been seeing a lot more people in the Cabinet of Curiosity looking through books with information about the years leading up to the Flood. He thinks they're looking up stuff about the Warriors of Light, but all of the old books call them Sin Eaters, or worse. He thinks that this random guy showing up and calling himself a Warrior of Light along with all the people suddenly interested in them could end up leading to a lot of things getting out of hand. So he thinks the best way to fix this problem is to tell the truth about Ardbert and what he and his friends actually did for the world. While they did cause the Flood, they weren't villains like everyone thinks. Even the Exarch only knew the truth about them because of the information that was in the Crystal Tower, but their reputations were destroyed before he even got to the First, despite the fact that some people knew how much good they had done and praised them for it. Even Beck-Luke remembers them fondly, so it's only right that you try to repair their reputations, especially since you'd be dead without Ardbert, and the best way to repair the reputations of the Warriors of Light is to tell the people exactly what Ardbert did for them. So the Scions agree to call together the people of the Crystarium and tell them the whole story. Everyone gathers and you tell them everything from how Ardbert and the others started the Flood by accident while trying to save everyone, then how they gave their lives to travel to another world to fix the mistakes they made. It's an impressive tale that does change the way that people feel about the fallen heroes, but things start to get a little weird when you see Ardbert walk into the crowd. At first the Warrior of Light thought that only she could see him just like last time, until Alphinaud notices him too. One of the soldiers recognizes him as the man who claimed to be a Warrior of Light when he killed that Sin Eater. Ardbert had planned on revealing the truth about the Warriors of Light on the First, but your speech saved him the trouble, although he does have a bit to add to the story. He announces that he is the Ardbert that you were talking about. He claims that he was given new life just like the First, yet he doesn't know why. The planet must have just wanted him to come back. Before you can contradict his story that you know is a load of chocobo crap, he tells everyone that you're from another world and you'll have to leave them soon. Then the people of the Crystarium will have to protect themselves by becoming Warriors of Light. The fact that people can just become Warriors of Light is shocking to hear, but Ardbert explains that at first he was just an adventurer, but he constantly chose to fight for those in need, and that led him to where he is now, and anyone can do that. There is far more to it than that, but he's won over the crowd so they listen as he goes on and on. But one thing you are positive of, that man's not Ardbert. But the people are eating up what he's saying, so speaking out against him after you just shouted his praises won't end well, so you and the Scions go back into the tower to talk. All except for Alphinaud, who decides to watch the rest of the speech. Beck-Luke recognizes the man as Ardbert, but the resurrection story is impossible since Ardbert's soul is still with you. Y'shtola can still see the power the merger gave you, so Ardbert hasn't separated from you again. It makes Urianger think of this Ardbert like a cardinal virtue, although he isn't a Sin Eater, and if he's not a Sin Eater, then he's almost definitely an Ascian. The bodies of the first Warriors of Light were buried at Yulmore. 4 of them were made into the cardinal virtues, but if anyone knew where to look, Ardbert's body shouldn't have been too hard to find. Y'shtola figures that the Ascian most likely to get the body is the last of the Unsundered, Elidibus. Since he left Xenos' body, it makes sense that he would come to the First to finish what Emmett Selk started. The fact that Ascians possess dead bodies on the regular is something that Beck-Luke finds odd, but since they have no physical bodies of their own, it's pretty common. And in their natural state, the only people who can see them are ones with the Echo. That's why when Elidibus had showed up at the Wakened Sands forever ago, only you and Menphilia could see him. They can't just possess anyone either, because if they could, I'm sure Elidibus would have Orochimaru'd your body a long time ago. That's a Naruto reference for those of you who don't know. However, it's strange that Ardbert's body was able to be taken. If the Blessing of Light keeps Ascians from being able to take bodies, does it mean that protection stops with their death, or did it fade when Ardbert's soul merged with yours? Y'shtola has a lot of questions that she will probably spend a lot of time trying to find answers for, but the biggest one is why is an Ascian using Ardbert to create Warriors of Light? He's always been weird as far as Ascians go, but when Urianger had worked with him, he had learned that the Ascian is no slouch when it comes to manipulating people. So whatever you think he's doing, it's likely something completely different. But after your speech, you can't very well talk bad about the man of the people. But you definitely need to keep an eye on him, something that Alphinaud has already decided to do. While he tracks the Ascian, Urianger decides to go tell Reen and Thancred what's going on, because when the fight happens, you'll all need to be there. While he's doing that, Y'shtola decides to head back to the Great Wood to see if she can learn more about the Ascians. Apparently an unexplored part of the Katana Revel has been discovered. Almet thinks the relics inside talk about a great calamity that happened to an ancient civilization, which might be the Ascians. That's something you're more than a little curious about too, so you head out to Fanau to meet up with your favorite bunny girls. Almet is happy to tell you that since the last time you were there, her people have reclaimed their land near the Raktika Falls, which is where they found the ruins. They didn't hit any traps, but the deeper chambers are warded by magic, so they decided to wait for you since the Scions have no self-preservation skills. Almet is ready to go, but she is pretty sure that whatever the Ronkans have guarding the central chamber is going to be strong since there were no traps in any other part of this new area, which is something that doesn't seem to faze her younger sisters at all. The two girls run off like excited high school students, so you all have to follow them. This new chamber has a statue of an extra creepy thing that looks very lifelike, but the owl statue that's on the pedestal next to it looks just like the ones you had to move before to open other doors. And there's an empty pedestal right next to a sealed door with a spot for that exact statue. The puzzle looks way too simple, so Y'shtola wants to study things a bit more before you do something that gets you all killed. And after she reads the inscription on the pedestal, she realizes that the entire thing is a trap. Of course, Ouimet grabs the statue before Y'shtola can stop her, which does exactly what you should have expected and wakes up the creepy looking statue. The first thing it does is teleport you all the way to a strange room where it turns your friends into cards and forces you to solve its riddles to save them. The thing is exactly like a sphinx from ancient Egyptian lore, except even after you solve its riddles correctly, it gives you a test of strength where it tries to murder you. It makes a very good attempt at ending you all, but the 5 of you manage to beat it, which makes it send you back to the other chamber and open the door for you. Inside of the formerly sealed room is a tomb for a woman who Almet thinks is the Archmage Tayuna. She was a legendary Ronkan hero who was said to be so powerful that she could take down entire armies with a single spell. It was also said that Tayuna could see the truths that were long lost and could hear the voices of men's hearts. So in other words, she had the echo. The wall has a message on it beneath a mural that says, "By the light of fallen stars, power awakens," which makes Y'shtola think that those star showers that set the sky on fire have something to do with the appearance of people with the echo. And the mural on this wall not only looks exactly like the other one you saw in the Revel, but it looks like what Emin made you go through in Amarat. From what the Exarch said, the soul and mind share a bond, making it possible for a very traumatic event to leave a mark on the soul that could be activated by the right trigger. The echo is something that they haven't been able to figure out by any conventional means, but that could be because it's just a remnant, or an echo, of a power that the ancient Unsundered people had. It's all just a theory that Y'shtola has, but it is a very good one. There's still more to learn, but it won't be learned in the tomb, so you all head back to Fanau. Almet lets you know that the story of Tayuna has been handed down for generations, and with each telling it changes a little. So there's no real way to know what really happened since none of you lived through it. She feels that the same will eventually happen with your story, but she promises to do her best to preserve it too. This little trip didn't teach you anything about the Ascians, but the info you got about the Echo makes Y'shtola think the trip was worthwhile. Still, it's time to head back, but she wants to stop in Slitherbough first. She wanted to talk to Runar, who was in the middle of preparing a meal that he pretty much forces Y'shtola to agree to join. So since this won't be a short trip anymore, she decides to take the time to clean her room. And by clean it, she means to enchant a broom like Mickey Mouse did in Fantasia and let it do all of the work. Which means if she could have done that all along, there was no reason for her room to be that disgusting. But they do say geniuses have messy rooms, so I guess it fits. While the broom cleans, Y'shtola realizes that she's going to miss the people here once she's gone, and because Runar's eavesdropping, he overhears, which doesn't do much for his mood. You all sit and eat, but you're barely into your meal before the twins and Urianger show up. Apparently Alphinaud had followed Arbor, but he lost him when he made it into the woods. The Ascian has been going everywhere to spread the truth about the Warriors of Light and the Flood. Alphinaud still can't figure out why he's trying to get people to follow the path of the Warrior of Light, but he's caused more than a handful of people to do it, which means whatever he's planning is working, and it'll probably be bad. He's likely on his way to Slitherbough at that very moment. The The way he would get people to listen to him is he would go and deal with a sin eater to help the locals. So if you hunt down some of the eaters in the area nearby, you might catch up to him. Thancred and Reen are apparently back from the empty and are working on hunting for the likely target, so you all set out to meet them. There aren't nearly as many sin eaters as there used to be, and when you see Thancred and Reen, they've already dealt with the one that was nearby. Turns out that's the one Arbor was looking for, and he shows up like you expected. He mentions some things about how you had first met when he and his friends took down Ravana before you could get there, but he gives himself away when he messes up and says Seto is dead and he'll miss him. Since he's been outed, he reveals that he is in fact Elidibus, but you knowing doesn't matter since he wasn't really trying to trick you anyway. He is acting out the will of the convocation, and lying to you is unnecessary, but unlike Emmett, Elidibus has no intention of sharing information with you or pretending like you're anything close to equals. Regardless of what Emmett's last words were to you, Elidibus doesn't see any common ground between you. He has his duty, and it will be done. The Ascian leaves without telling you anything, so Y'shtola figures that if she wants to learn more about the Ascians, another trip to the Tempest is in order. However, Urianger doesn't think you'll learn all that much from the Amarat that Emmett Selk had made, but the ruins of the real city are down there too, and if what you saw in the Ronkan ruins was anything to go off of, there's a lot you could learn from these new ruins too. Which means it's time for another trip to see the Ondo, since trying to explore everything on your own would take forever. The Ondo chief knows of some ruins that you haven't seen, but at the moment he can't send anyone to guide you. The Benthos, another tribe of Ondo who are pretty violent, decided to raid the food stores of the chief and his people instead of hunting their own. The problem is the Ondo don't have the warriors needed to really deal with them and get their stuff back. But it turns out that you guys just so happen to be warriors, and since you're asking for help, offering your combat skills as payment is more than a fair trade since you like sticking pointy objects and things anyway. And you did change the entire ecosystem in the area, so the changes in the hunting grounds are kinda your fault. The Benthos have taken what they've stolen back to an area called Flounder's Floor that has a lot of guards, so you'll all have to sneak in to recover what you need. It turns out that the Benthos have been raiding the storehouses all across Kalusia, not just stealing from other Ondo, which means they're planning something, but you and the others can figure that out once you've gotten back to the chief with their food. The chief is happy to hear of your success, and he does have some idea as to why the Benthos are hoarding so much food. They're planning on claiming the ruins that you're interested in studying for themselves. The place has only just been discovered, so the Ondo weren't all that sure about why the Benthos were so eager to take the place, but adding that to the fact that they are hoarding food means their queen is about to give birth and they need the space and food for her and the babies to grow. That sounds pretty normal, but the various Ondo tribes keep their breeding to a minimum because of the scarcity of resources. If the Benthos have decided to change things, it's because they are building an army to attack the surface dwellers. Their queen recently went around seeking allies among the other Ondo tribes, and when they all refused to team up and attack the surface, she apparently decided to get her army by other means. Since things are about to get bloody, the Scions would rather get to the ruins without bringing any Ondo, so the chief gives you all directions. The place is even deeper underwater than Amarat, so if you want to actually go there, you'll need to get Bismarck to help again, which means it's time for a swim, but Urianger plans on doing things a little bit differently. He's perfected his water walking trick and he wants to show you. Even though if he just put that effort into learning how to swim, he could have avoided all the hassle. But it's Urianger, so he has to make simple things complicated. Ironically enough, it actually works. For all of 20 feet before he gets dizzy and sinks, forcing Thancred to dive in to save him. The technique worked fine, but it seemed like Urianger's body had started to fail him. Thancred seems a little weak too, but he shrugs it off and you all decide to take the boat that was parked not 3 feet away from you the entire time. Now that Bismarck knows you work with Titania, he's more than willing to take you where you need to go, so you all ride to the ruins beneath the sea, where you run into a whole lot of Benthos before finishing off their queen in typical warrior of light fashion. These ruins seem to be far from ruined, and it has a lot of large crystals around that the ancient people used to store ideas and concepts for them to use in their creation magic. With there being so many of them, in the ancient days before the Sundering, this place must have been extremely important. One of the crystals activates and you see the image of a group of ancient Ascians having a meeting after the summoning of Zodiark had stopped the final days. And although they had been saved, these Ascians felt that it was only a temporary solution. If they continued as they had before, they would end up in the same position again. But despite arguing with the convocation, they wouldn't listen. They had tried to recruit the member of the group who had quit, But just because she didn't want to help the convocation didn't mean she wanted to help the opposition either. Vanat, the leader of the group, doesn't have any anger toward the others since they're just trying to save the world in their own way. But their way isn't a permanent solution, and that's what she wants, even if it means being hated by the rest of her people. Since the others agree, they move forward with their plan to summon Hydaelyn. Now the Scions know how the summoning of Hydaelyn began, but even when Emet-Selch had mentioned their opposition, he had never mentioned Vanat. But it seems like you all have found our faction's headquarters, and Y'shtola is eager to see what other information the crystals hold. She presses a button and the image of Vanat talking to another Ancient One appears. The Ancient Ascian is trying to stop her from sacrificing herself to summon Zodiark, but far fewer of the people support their cause than those who believed in Zodiark. So if Hydaelyn is going to be on equal footing with him, then she'll have to become her heart. But Vanat doesn't think she'll die in the process, she just won't be the same. Before the vision ends, the Ascian wonders if the convocation felt as reluctant to let Elidibus become the heart of Zodiark as the others are to let Vanat become the heart of Hydaelyn. That brings up a major question. If Elidibus became the heart of Zodiark, how is he even walking around in Arbor's body at all? I think a better question is, where is Vanat? Y'shtola of course wants more answers, but the machine that let her activate the crystal seems to be out of power, which means it needs to be reactivated before you can find any more answers. And considering the fact that Elidibus ceased to exist even before the Sundering, who are you dealing with? Emet-Selch had mentioned that the names you know the Ascians by aren't the ones they were born with, but they're their titles. Emet-Selch was a title, his real name was Hades, which means the Elidibus you're dealing with may have been the person who filled the role of emissary after his predecessor became Zodiark's heart. But Y'shtola doesn't think that's it. She decides to stay behind and keep working on getting the machine running so she can get some more answers. While she does that, the rest of you will head back to the surface since you can't really help her. Plus you need to check with the Exarch to see how close he is to finishing the spirit vessels. When you get back there is a bit of a problem in the Crystarium. A lot of people who work in the city have gathered and they want to quit their jobs to go off and become warriors of light. It's not like they're forced to do their jobs, but if the city loses a large number of people all at once, it could cripple the entire thing, so the Exarch wants them to hold off on leaving until replacement workers can be found. When some of the arguing people see you, they try to explain that they want to go out into the world like you did so they could help people, and while that is what you did, you were never a pivotal figure in the workings of a nation. You were always only responsible for yourself. These people are abandoning their duty in search of a dream, but there's nothing you can really say to change their minds or stop the chaos that'll come if large groups of people around the world just drop what they're doing and leave to become adventurers, which means you really have to stop Elidibus. But he's a mile ahead of you. The sky grows dark and stars begin to fall, and all across the city people start to hear a voice inside of their head telling them 3 words that you should remember. Hear, feel, think. They're hearing the voice of Hydaelyn as they gain the echo. As people gain the echo, Elidibus shows up telling them that they are now warriors of light. Then the star shower vanishes like it was never there. After he welcomes the people into the fold, Elidibus goes to leave, but Alphinaud stops him. The Ascian admits that he did make the star shower. It was just an illusion used to wake up the power in people's broken souls, but he's still not going to tell you his plan. He does confirm that the echo is a remnant of the power that you all had when you were unsundered, and even the strongest wielders of that power only have a small piece of what they had in the past. Which means, despite what you all thought, the echo is not Hydaelyn's power. The echo just lets people hear her, and by hearing her, you can gain the blessing of light. And when Hydaelyn needs new servants, she simply makes an illusion like Elidibus did, which makes Urianger wonder why would Elidibus make new servants for his enemy, but Elidibus never said Hydaelyn was his enemy. He's a warrior of light, and he plans on saving the world. He leaves without saying anything else, but he definitely succeeded at confusing you and causing a lot of people to leave the city on their quest. Since there's nothing he can do to stop them from leaving now, the Exarch wants you to give the people some advice before they head out. Just because they're being put on their path by an Ascian doesn't mean they aren't good people. The people are flattered that you would come to see them off, and they definitely plan on following your advice and making you proud. With that done, you head back to the tower to figure out what to do next, since you not only have no idea what Elidibus is planning, you don't have any idea how to go about finding out. So it's all up to Y'shtola to see if what she can learn in the ruins helps you deal with the Ascian. Thancred decides to put his skills to use and track the Ascian, and for once he won't let Ring come. She's gotten good at stealth, but she's nowhere near as good as he is, and she may make him get caught. So the others will stay at the tower to keep Elidibus from getting suspicious while they help the Exarch with the vessels. He still hasn't found the means of putting your minds and souls inside of the crystal, so there's a lot of work left to do, but if the Scions all pitch in, it should go smoothly. As for you, it's best that you take this opportunity to take a nap since you likely won't have much time for a break in the future. Of course, while you try to rest, Tainer, the young mage who you worked with on your hunt for one of the cardinal virtues, comes by to talk. He wants to know about the strange star shower, so you tell him everything about the fake arbor, which after his experience of having to face the body of one of his friends, he can relate. He actually makes you feel better about the fact that very soon you will have to face off against the body of your friend, because it's definitely heading that way. In the meantime, the Exarch has decided that he might have to use his own blood to successfully put the Scion's souls in the vessels, and there's no telling what doing that will do to him. As you all prepare for the trials ahead, Xenos wanders through the streets of the burning city of Amarat in a dream that he's been having for his entire life, which would explain why he's crazy. Dreaming of the final days would drive anyone insane, especially if they're doing it as a kid. And that's where we're going to stop for today. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and ding that notification bell. And if you want to buy me a coffee for my work, sign up to become a member of the channel. Until next time, guys. Later.